What's up, guys? Chad here. So, I've been speaking with so many people over the years and working with so many people over the years that are trying to break into tech sales, which I've been in tech sales for just about 3 years, and more notably in one of the most competitive companies in the space, HubSpot, where I've made six figures, 10K per month plus, stuff like that. But the biggest limiting belief among all of these people is that they feel like they don't have enough sales experience to get into tech sales, to break into a good role in tech sales, or they feel like they somehow have heard from some place that they need like formal sales training to get a good job. And honestly, I always ask myself, like, where did people even get these assumptions, right? So today I'm going to break down exactly why you actually don't need any sales experience whatsoever to get into tech sales. And I've personally worked with people who also had no college degree or sales experience that have been able to break into very desirable tech sales roles with a clear path to making six figures. Okay, so I'm going to prove to you why this is false. And if you don't realize how you're actually lying to yourself when you say I need sales experience, then it's actually going to cause you to settle for a role that isn't actually going to be good enough for you, or isn't actually going to pay you what you actually want to make, or it'll cause you to just fail entirely and quit and not break into tech sales at all. Okay, so understanding this is going to be critical to your success if you're someone who feels like they have this belief and it's stopping them from getting into this industry. Okay, so the first thing is people who have this belief, what I notice is you just don't understand sales. Okay? Because if you did, you'd realize that sales is everything. Any job on this planet is sales. Any communication with another human being is sales. Thinking internally and making decisions for yourself is actually sales too. Everybody's done sales to some degree. If you've ever talked someone into something about going to this certain restaurant, if you've ever talked someone out of something or pushed them into say giving them reasons why they should do this or that, if you've ever like bought something and really considered it and spoke to the cashier, whatever, like that's a sale, right? There's so many things that is like everything is sales. Life is sales. There's a book by Daniel Pink. It's called To Sell is Human. Okay, if you want to really internalize this, you can read that. Honestly, I haven't even read the whole book because I've already internalized this stuff. But in that book, he just breaks down how like sales is everywhere, right? And so this is the first thing. If you have this belief, I don't have enough sales experience, it's like you just don't understand sales, because if you did, you'd see the sales experience you have. You see? Now, of course, this takes a little bit of skill and knowledge. And this is what I'm going to pass to you in this video. And it's also what I help people with in my one-on-one mentorship, which is the first link in the description if you want to check that out. But so how do you understand this, right? So the way that you understand this is, like I said before, everything is sales. But now when we approach tech sales and a tech sales company, the way that we want to get that across is through our resume, through our LinkedIn, right? And we're actually going to look past at we're actually going to look back at some of the past experience that we have, and instead of putting the technical responsibilities we had, like processed orders or did this and that, like that isn't related to sales, we're going to get rid of everything and just orient all of the stuff that is sales, right? And so there's a certain language that you speak. It's a language that you speak with sales, right? For example, I worked with someone who was a cashier, okay? And what happened was they had helped customers place orders, blah, blah, blah. There's a language that you speak in sales where you can actually pull up the sales experience that you do have. For example, communicating with clients, potential clients and customers is sales experience, okay? So there's a way you can put that on your resume to help it look like, okay, communicated with a high volume of potential customers per day and sold an average of X amount of revenue per day. Because that is true, okay? Now, in the cashier world, you're not really going to say things like that, right? It's not going to sound like that. But when we're applying for a sales role, we're taking the sales experience that we have, because you're quite literally like making a transaction. And this can go for any job. Even if you're not making transactions, you could also say like, I helped the company bring in X amount per month of revenue, right? Like there's a sales oriented language, because the truth is you did, even if you weren't directly selling it, they're paying you for a reason, because it's helping them make money. And so therefore you're helping them make money, right? And so sales is all about bringing cash in, making transactions, communicating with customers. It's basically that simple, right? And now, even if you've never worked a job and you've never communicated with any customers at all, ever, you can literally just put like any achievement you have, like if you played a sport, right? Like everybody's done something, okay? So these employers know something that you don't, okay? These employers aren't looking for sales experience. What they're looking for are traits. Because here's a reality: skills can be learned, but traits can't really be learned, okay? A trait is something like, oh, that person is open-minded. Oh, that person is very coachable. That person is very extroverted or introverted, which, by the way, you can be introverted and work in sales. I'm one of the most introverted people, especially when getting into sales. I was one of the most introverted people, and I just crushed it. I became a top performer. You don't need to be an extrovert. But anyways, traits are harder to teach than skills. Traits are something someone kind of inherently has. Now, you can always change, right? But it's much harder to change that than just learning a new skill. And so these employers know that. And they actually have what's called RAMP. They actually have RAMP programs in their company, right? It's a training program. RAMP is when you go through a training process to slowly ramp your way up into a quota where you're actually going to be like, all right, expected to hit these numbers per month, okay? That's the traditional structure of these tech sales companies. Now, if they have that in place, why would they care if you like know how to do the job or not, right? What they're actually looking for and what they're actually testing you in these interviews are traits, okay? And some of the main traits that you want to showcase are you coachable? Are you curious? Are you resilient? Are you committed to win? Are you not going to fail or just quit on something easily, right? And so the way that these interviews work is they're actually more so asking you questions about that. Okay, they're assessing your traits. If you have no skills, but you check their boxes in terms of traits based on questions they'll ask around, like, tell me about a time you failed at something. Tell me about a time you achieved a goal. Tell me about a time when you learned something from somebody. Tell me about a time when someone gave you some harsh feedback and how did you handle that, right? Like, they have ways to ask people who have no sales experience on how to vet out if they're a good fit, right? These companies hire all the time, guys. These companies need people out there. This is one of the most highest demand jobs out there because the economy needs salespeople to run. A business can't function unless a salesperson is there. And so these companies they're not just turning everybody away, guys. They're assessing for different things than just whoever has sales experience, right? Because otherwise, nobody would be able to get into this industry because nobody would be able to get a sales job. It's an illusion to need sales first to do sales, okay? So that's the thing, guys. These employers are smart. They know that they're testing people for the traits they have and not the skills they have, and they know this. And so this is why if you can understand this, you can breathe more and just relax and be like, yeah, okay, now I understand. And this leads me to the next point, okay? The other reason why you don't need sales experience to get hired is because landing a job, the whole process of approaching a company and landing a job, I mean, this just makes me so excited when I help people do this because it changes their whole identity, okay? So when you land a job, that whole process, building the resume, applying for the listing on the job posting, speaking with the recruiter, speaking with the sales manager. That is sales. What are you selling? Yourself, okay? So the better you get at just knowing how to navigate an interview process, in general, create a clean resume, right? Maybe make a connection with someone in the company by going on their LinkedIn profile and sending them a message before you go into the interview so you can make a better first impression, right? Preparing answers and presenting yourself cleanly to these interviews, that's sales, right? That's a sale. The first sale you ever make when you get into this in tech sales is getting the job. Okay, that's a closed deal in itself, right? And so this is why you actually don't need sales experience, right? You don't need it. If you hop on that interview and they ask you, which they don't ask you this, guys. They don't ask you it. Now, if it's on your resume and you have a sales role, they may ask you about it, okay? That's fine. But, so you better know, what you've done. But, if you've never done sales, they're not going to be tell me what you've done to book a meeting. Even if they did though, you'd have something to say. Well, hey, look, I've never had any traditional tech sales experience prior, but obviously I've been in sales since before I can remember, with speaking with my family, navigating arguments and with my siblings, selling, lemonade on the street, whatever it is, right? There's ways to speak the language, okay? But then you can also say I think that this process in itself is demonstrating a lot of what the job actually is. For example, I researched your company, right, and understood what you guys do, who you help, and now I'm actually wanting to sell myself to you guys, and that's how I've been doing this. I booked a meeting with you specifically by applying and maybe reaching out to someone and getting a good impression out there. And now I'm on a call with you, which I've booked, and potentially working toward closing this deal, right? So yes, while I have no traditional sales experience, I'm just trying to show that, yes, I understand the role, right? And so if they see that, which, by the way, they're not going to press you on that, but if they see that, that's how in your brain you could be comfortable sitting and being like, okay, like I don't need sales experience because this is a sale. And it's the exact same thing that you'd be doing in the role too. Okay. Reaching out to people, doing research on companies and booking meetings with people. You're not even going to have to close a deal because usually when in tech sales, you start out as a SDR and you just book meetings for account executives. Okay. And by the way, guys, I have a full free book that I wrote. Okay. It's a full free book. The third link in the description. If you want to learn more about tech sales, breaking into your first role, I wrote a whole guide on it. Okay, people have read that and gotten amazing results reading that just on their own for free. Okay, so check that out if you're in a place where you don't want to like fast track this with one-on-one mentorship, which can be valuable in its own way. Okay, so the other thing is you don't need to do this, but you can also increase your understanding of the role. Okay, if they see that you understand the role, they don't care about your sales experience. There's no excuses not to understand tech sales, the day-to-day, what it looks like, how to actually book a meeting in tech sales, right? There's no excuses, guys. There's free certifications online for literally SDR, BDR, foundations, right? I like the course. It's completely free. Foundations for Success in Sales Development by Salesforce, okay? One of the biggest companies in the space. There's also one called Inbound Sales by HubSpot, okay? Those are free certifications that you can also put on your resume when you complete them and put on your LinkedIn when you complete them, okay? Now, you don't need to do it, but that's something I recommend to all my students because it'll help you increase your understanding of the role of sales, and that comes across in your interviews, okay? They don't care if you have sales experience, but there's no excuse not to understand what the role is and what sales is, right? Okay? So that's another reason why people are failing in this. They just don't understand what they're doing or what they're getting into, right? Understand the role before you hop on an interview, guys. It's simple, okay? So that's all for this video, guys. This is one of the biggest things that I get, and I promise you, everybody has sales experience, right? What I do in my my coaching is I help you pull all of that to the forefront, right? I usually, when a client works with me and they get a chance to see the actual sales experience they have, their identity completely shifts, and that increases their confidence to help them go faster, approach these companies faster with more confidence, and actually step into these interviews without feeling nervous and anxious, okay? This is literally what happens. Their identity, their self-image, their reality changes when they realize and understand sales and know how to tailor themselves toward these roles, okay? So that's what I help people with in my one-on-one mentorship. If you're interested in learning more about that, first link in the description, you literally can just book a call with me for free. On that call, it's basically just talking through what your struggle is and if it makes sense for us to work together. And if not, that's totally cool. People get value out of the call either way, okay? So first link in the description for that. Second link in the description is my live community. Okay, this is for people who maybe can't afford one-on-one, and maybe you're in a phase where you're trying to make the money and you don't have the money, and I get you, right? And I want to help you there as well. So that's why I've made this community. It's group coaching, okay? Once a week, we hop on a live group call where I literally, in a group setting, help each person on that call, with whatever they're struggling with. I also have a full A to Z course, hand by hand, step by step, grabbing your hand through the digital screen and pulling you through how to do every step of the process, finding roles, applying to these companies, standing out among the competition, what to say on your interviews, everything, guys, okay? So check that out. That's the second link in the description. And yeah, that's it. If you want to dive more deep into my content, I've made some wild content on this channel that goes through literally like step by step. It's basically paid material free, okay, guys? That's the level of effort I put into some of this stuff. Check it out. One of these videos on screen. I'm out for now. Hope you enjoyed. Take care. Bye.